Marvel's X-Men Legends series invites classic creators back to mutant characters they've written in comics history with a chance to update unresolved plots or threads. Every indication is these updates will then become a part of Marvel's current timeline and continuity. X-Men Legends #1 kicks off with longtime X-Men writer Fabian Nicieza revisiting the story of Adam X, the 90s X-treme human-Shi'ar combo, and long-rumored original Third Summers brother. Today I'll answer, big picture, is it a good thing to have in-continuity do-overs for creators? Adam's a confirmed Summers brother, and the family all knows it. So what? Does this mean anything? Does it change anything? What could it mean for the dawn and reign of X? And theories and predictions for things to come in Hickman's X-Men and elsewhere. Hey everybody, I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. You are listening to Krakin Krakoa. If you like the Comic Book Herald YouTube channel, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. It helps me find new readers, listeners, and of course encourages me to continue making more videos. You can find full X-Men and comic book reading orders on comicbookherald.com. Spoilers for discussed comics, including the history of Adam X, will follow. All right. I'll admit, as hooks go, I'm more interested in Adam X's decades-defining ethos, backwards cap, ponytail goat combo, Mr. Muffet Flip, and X-treme than I am his actual comics relevance. And given that we actually have a different Third Summers brother already revealed in Ed Brubaker's X-Men Deadly Genesis, What's Up Vulcan, I'm honestly torn on the relevance of Adam X as a Summers in this era of X-Men. Nonetheless, I like Nicieza as a writer, and this idea of revisiting X-Men continuity is egregiously up my alley, so I'm definitely game to give the 2-issue arc, X-Men Legends 1 and 2, my full attention. Broadly speaking, I'm very interested in X-Men Legends as a project, this in-continuity journey back to celebrated runs or lingering questions from days of X-Men past. Again, the first 2 issues are Nicieza and Adam X, and then issues 3 and 4 will bring Luis and Walt Simonson back to their fan-favorite run on X-Factor, aka the debut of Apocalypse. As someone who heavily values comics history, I think it's great to acknowledge and respect the creators who have pushed X-Men to where they are today, although I'm simultaneously weary of how well creators who haven't touched these characters in decades will align with where the X-Men universe is at now. You know, Apocalypse under Hickman and through Ten of Swords is a developed character, and it would be cool to see that reflected in the Simonson's X-Factor as if that was part of the plan all along, but is that the kind of cohesive project we can expect? I'm dubious, honestly. I'm curious what you all think. Like, is it a good thing to afford former X creators the opportunity to add to past stories in such a way that could impact present-day Krakoan era comics? Let me know what you think of the X-Men Legends series in the comments here on the video. Now, in interviews, Nicieza has made it clear that past comics, or like what past comics are essential to the Adam X narrative and where Legends lives in that space. The character is introduced in X-Force Annual number 2, appears in X-Force 29 and 30, but then it's X-Men number 39 in the 90s and oddly the mid-90s and not available on Marvel Unlimited, currently Captain Marvel number 3, also written by Fabian Nicieza, that really sets the stage for what we read in Legends number 1. Now, X-Men 39 revolves around Scott Summers' grandfather, the pilot, going missing in their home, area of Alaska. Remember, the family in Alaska is a big part of why Scott heads that direction and meets Madeline Pryor in the mid-80s. Adam X, who just happens to be on the run from the Shi'ar in Alaska, bumps into Philip Summers and snuggles him back to health to help him survive in the wilderness and get him to a hospital. Now, Jean Grey encounters Adam X in this hospital, and after helping Adam share his experiences flying spaceships with Philip as a very sweet gesture, there are several allusions to a familiarity that continues to build the possibility that Adam X could be related to the Summers clan, okay? There are hints in this era of the 90s X-Men series, adjectiveless as it were, that Adam X is in fact a Summers. They're very strong hints, especially in retrospect. In X-Men number 23, this all kind of really kickstarts with Nicieza getting the ball rolling with this off-reference Mr. Sinister panel referencing Scott's brothers, plural, which sounds exactly like the kind of Freudian slip Sinister would do on purpose to screw with Scott. I have to say, reading the sequence again for this piece, it's very funny considering the comedy, the modern comedy Sinister that we know now. This actually reads very much in character, despite the fact that Nicieza and writers of the time were definitely treating Sinister with a lot more gravitas and more seriousness. But nonetheless, that little font there, where he says, "I'm sorry, did I?" That very much looks like a trick Ariana Maher would pull currently in the pages of Hellions. Now, it's unrelated to the Adam X saga, but X-Men number 39 also includes the continuing development of David Haller, aka Legion, seeing visions of Destiny after his role leading into her death in the build-up to the Muir Island saga. And in terms of like where we are in Marvel publication history here, we're heading towards Legion Quest and Age of Apocalypse. This is something I've talked about before on Krakin Krakoa, but I continue to find Legion's ties to Destiny completely fascinating given, well, everything in House of X and Powers of 10. Look for this to play out as Reign of X continues, perhaps in the Cy Spurrier written Way of X coming soon. I think could be a likely destination. But like, if we get through the Hickman era of X-Men and we don't get a lot of connections between Legion and Destiny based on these, past connections, I will be supremely disappointed. As mentioned, the crucial part of the Adam X narrative is Captain Marvel Volume 3, Number 3, or the other crucial part. Honestly, I think X-Men Legends does a pretty good job filling in these details of exposition, but it just wouldn't be Krakin Krakoa if I didn't force myself to read super obscure stories about Adam X, Genevieve, and Eric the Red. Now, there's a Shi'ar group here known as the Crystal Claws. They're basically a Shi'ar cult. They seek to capture Adam X, as does Eric the Red, most well known for his roles in Phoenix Saga era Uncanny X-Men, and if I'm being honest, X-Men the Animated Series. Not only does Adam have roots in Shi'ar space, he's born and raised here, but there's also prophecy that says he'll one day become some sort of ruler of the Shi'ar. So he's very much a desired pawn in the Shi'ar's games of space empire politics. Nicieza writes an effective recap of Adam's origins, raised by the Shi'ar, only to discover his mutant abilities to quite literally make people's blood boil, or in the case of healing Philip in X-Men number 39, having the opposite effect. Picking up where Nicieza left off, the Shi'ar and Eric the Red are still after Adam X, capturing Philip and Deborah Summers here, grandparents to Scott and Alex Summers, and setting the hunt for Adam X fully into motion. If you've read the aforementioned, like X-Men number 39, like I mentioned, this all feels very much of a piece of a part with that 90s X-Men saga. It definitely feels like, Fabian Nicieza is stepping into shoes he is super comfortable with, as he would be, as a major contributor to the X-Men franchise of the 90s. Now, the hunt for Adam X escalates, drawing in Cable, the Starjammers, and ultimately the Summers Bros themselves, Scott and Alex. It's a whole family affair. I'll say here too that Booth, Corona, and Guru EFX sell the modernized 90s story style very well. It's a good fit for this narrative, and I hope Legends continues to operate with era-specific designs and styles, even if it's not what like a literal Jim Lee impersonation. I don't want it to be impersonations, but creators actually taking their own styles and fitting the era. That's cool. In the case of the Starjammers, their entire deal here is they have orders to take Adam either dead or alive, somewhat ironic given that their leader Corsair is of course Scott and Alex's father, who, as we'll learn in the reveal, has some blood ties here as well. Much like Havoc and Cyclops' powers don't work on each other, we see that Adam X can't make their blood boil, nor do their various blasts have much impact on the X-treme one. And so finally it's proven and confirmed that Adam X is a Summers. Summers Bros unite. Honestly, given that we already have Vulcan, in modern day in X-Men continuity, at this point, I'm into the idea of Marvel just rolling out a long-lost Summers brother from Shi'ar space every decade, right? Let's just keep it going. Let's just keep adding to the Summers brother narrative. It can be Adam, it can be Vulcan, it can be anybody we want. Let's just keep those Summers family trees popping. But in all seriousness, there's more to this story, okay? There's a second issue written by Nicieza that's coming out soon, but the major question that resonates for me is why does this matter, right? Why do we care? X Factor is where we've seen Adam X in the Dawn of X, okay? We've seen him on Mojo World. He's either trapped or unknowingly sort of participating in Mojo World. We have not gotten a lot of it other than he's running a pretty horrific sort of YouTube game show experience. If Adam X is a known Summers, okay, and we've seen him now in the pages of X Factor, and X Factor, that crew, including Rachel Summers, knows that that's where Adam X is. If he's a Summers, why wouldn't Scott and everyone be way more focused on finding him and getting him out of Mojo World? Doesn't that seem like the sort of thing that they would want to do for their brother, especially given all this focus on the Summers throughout the Dawn of X and that family, especially in the Hickman written X-Men? I find that very odd if it is in fact confirmed here in X-Men Legends. Now, one wild detail I think is that way back in X-Men number 1 with Hickman's summer house diagram, which set the internet on fire, everybody focused on the fact that Cyclops and Jean and Wolverine's rooms all share doors. Room number 15 here is left empty next to Summers Brothers, Havoc, and Vulcan, okay? So even here you can see like a mild hint that there's a space for that original secret third Summers brother, Adam X the X-treme. That could be intentional. That could be planned. And that part of it is way more interesting to me. If like the stuff Nicieza is doing, if the stuff the Simonsons are going to do, if that's all more or less in concert with some big picture beats that the X office of contemporary comics is planning, that I really dig. And we know too that like Hickman really likes Shi'ar space. Like he likes the cosmic side of things. He's integrated a lot of that into his X-Men work so far. Perhaps there is a play here utilizing Adam in more of his Vulcan storyline. Honestly, that would be a really good fit for Adam X in this kind of wild cosmic Vulcan storyline, given Adam's connections to the Shi'ar as well. We'll see how it plays out, of course, but I'm kind of thinking we'll get confirmation that Adam X, is a Summers, but somehow that fact is going to be wiped from the memories of the actual Summers clan in X-Men Legends number 2. It's one of those things where otherwise, like, why isn't he around or involved in their lives? I think that's the biggest question. Looking at the Reign of X, looking at like X Factor, like, why aren't they concerned about him being trapped in Mojo World, stuff like that. I think that's the biggest, probably most difficult question Nicieza has to answer in this story. Like the easy thing was like, it's been a rumor for X-Men fans for a long time. Like this is fairly well known that Adam X was, this secret, brother, that the plot threads kind of got dropped and it never got followed through on. So it's like, okay, if you're going to do the story, follow through on it, but then you have to explain why for decades of X-Men comics, this was not referenced or brought up. Like why Scott and Alex don't talk about this brother and why he's not around when Vulcan comes back and this and that, right? So I think there has to be something that happens where this information gets out, but something's going to happen here with the family where their memories get wiped, they forget about it. Adam has to keep it a secret for one reason or another, because again, it's like, otherwise, why weren't they together for any period of time? So I'm curious, what did you all think of X-Men Legends number 1? What do you think of this series? What do you think of kind of the premise of this, of going back into X-Men continuity, these types of stories? Let me know in the comments here. Let me know as well, I've got an upcoming interview with writer Fabian Nicieza here. That'll be airing on Krakin Krakoa. We'll have more details to follow. We're definitely going to be doing it after X-Men Legends number 2 has come out, so we can talk about the 2 issues in full, and we'll talk about his Juggernaut run as well. I've been saving up my thoughts on the 5-issue Juggernaut mini for this interview and for Krakin Krakoa here as well. So if you have questions or thoughts or just kind of like ideas you would want to be covered in that interview with writer Fabian Nicieza, let me know. And let me know in the comments here. Let me know anywhere on the Comic Book Herald channel or at Comic Book Herald on social, and I am happy to take a look and see what you all are thinking. So thanks so much for listening. I'm Dave. You can support the site over at patreon.com/comicbookherald. Thanks in particular to those of you who support us at the Mysterious Benefactors tier. It's extremely generous. Thank you, Jesse W., Professor Pride, Cole Weathers, Martin Lopez, Chris Isidro, Brett Bowser, Professor X3769, PD Appleseed, Verisimilitude, Terra Nort, Ed Mackey, Clyde DeGlide, Pinball Drew, Mike Solomons, Matt Mahoney, and John Samander. There are, of course, all sorts of other tiers that you can support for as little as $1 a month. You can get some cool benefits. You can support Comic Book Herald. It's a great, generous thing that helps Comic Book Herald continue putting out all sorts of awesome content on the website and putting out these videos here on the YouTube channel. Again, I'm Dave. You can find my stuff at Comic Book Herald on social. Look for the Best Comics Ever and My Marvelous Year podcast for more from me on the My Marvelous Year podcast. In particular, we are entering the 1990s, okay? So this means we're going to be doing a reading club through Marvel Comics of the 90s. I will also be doing some spin-off X-Men-centric 90s X-Men reading club stuff here, specifically on the Krakin Krakoa channel. So if you're like all X-Men all the time, you can check that all out here. Subscribe, like the channel, all that fun stuff, and you'll get the fastest updates and information about all that. So thanks for listening, everybody, and as always, enjoy the comics.